What's up everybody, my name is Zach, or ZachmLIVE. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day is going well. Today, we are going to be diving into the lore of Terraria. If you're a lore buff like me, I would say this is something you should dive into, but you don't need to because I'm going to retell the entire story beginning to end right here, right now. This video is non-officially in partnership with the Terraria fandom wiki. All the fun facts and references in this video can be found there by heading to the link in the description. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you to check to see if you are subscribed. If you're not, would you consider hitting that big red button? Pretty much everyone who watches my videos is not subscribed, so if you enjoy the content I put out, clicking that button tells me that you want to see more. Thanks again, y'all, and let's get on with the video. The lore within the world of Terraria refers to the game's backstory. Initially, Terraria lacked a well-defined story when it first launched. However, in celebration of the game's 8th anniversary, the developers at Relogic crafted and unveiled a narrative that interweaved the characters and gameplay elements. It's worth noting that the developers have stated that this narrative represents just one possible interpretation of the game's lore, and that they encourage players to construct their own stories or choose not to. Either way, it's interesting to observe that various entries in the bestiary contain elements that align with this narrative. On May 16th, 2019, the story was released in the form of inked parchment images on the official Terraria forum. So, let's begin by chasing the white rabbit down the rabbit hole as I narrate the tale of Terraria. Welcome to the world of Terraria, a land full of mystery and wonder, with much of its destiny left up to the wildest imaginations. However, a few legends of old have made their way to our present time, passed down by countless generations of the Order of the Guide. These few scraps of information will serve to help you navigate your journey and overcome threats lurking in the shadows. This knowledge is now passed on to you, the brave adventurer, with the hope that it will aid you in your quest to save our world. In the beginning, the gods established a balance to guarantee fairness for all living creatures. This balance was to be of paramount importance, with no cost too great in seeking its fulfillment. Eons have passed since the gods first began testing the complexities of life in their fairness experiment. In this process, countless living worlds were created and now exist within the Terraria universe. Each world of Terraria is a sentient being that knows all that goes on and can feel the thoughts of all living creatures, with their sole purpose being to ensure that the desired balance is maintained, often violently so. The worlds utilize many defense mechanisms to ensure that balance is upheld at all costs. Some of them are known as the Hollow, Corruption, and Crimson. The Crimson is a single emergent living being connected directly to each world, sharing a hive mind and solely focused on restoring balance at all costs. Thousands of worlds before the one on which you stand now have been absorbed by this being. Many misguided people have made the horrific mistake of raising the Crimson to the level of a deity, conducting human sacrifices to it to placate the monstrosity or seek its favor. The Crimson gladly consumes these bodies, becoming one with them and producing terrifying beings who lose the ability to feel and blindly follow the hive mind. The Corruption is a cancer caused by the sins of those living in the worlds of Terraria. The vile actions and thoughts present in all beings feed the growth of the Corruption as it spreads relentlessly across each world. The Corruption knows nothing else but to consume everything it touches, leaving behind terrible creatures of hate that exist for the sole reason to cause pain and punishment for the unearned pleasure experienced by living things. After the Corruption restores balance to life, it destroys it with the goal of turning the world into a desolate abyss void of life. The Hollow, on the other hand, is of an entirely different nature. Within each world is a guardian who serves as the world's master and core. Once this creature is destroyed, the world will release the ancient spirits of light and dark to expedite the process of finding a new guardian. It is here when the Hollow is created and functions as an overcompensation of purity. Taken to the absolute extreme, the Hollow cures threats that would attempt to violate the critical balance of life. killing anything in its path as though it was treating an infection. Whether friend, foe, or neutral party, ultimately the Hollow serves to push back against the never-ceasing encroachment of control. The story written on the next few pieces of parchment proceeds to jump to the present time, describing the main character's purpose and what threats lie before them as you venture through the world. It is against the backdrop of this precious balance of life, desolation, and pain that the great battles of legend and the adventures of our time take place. In the blind spot of the universe, there exists a planet of unprecedented potential, your world. Your story begins with Cthulhu, a creature of immeasurable power and unknown origin, who arrived long ago with its seemingly sole purpose of being to rain destruction on and to have dominion over all the sentient life that flourishes on your world. None could stand against the advances of Cthulhu. The very fabric of Terraria itself seemed on the precipice of doom. At last, when all hope seemed lost, the ancient race of Dryads arose to wage battle against Cthulhu. The Dryads, with their unparalleled connection to the planet, were Terraria's truly last hope as they joined together to save all life from annihilation. The Dryads were, alas, unable to kill Cthulhu. However, with the Dryads' combined power, they were able to cripple Cthulhu's ability to weaken further damage on Terraria by ripping out Cthulhu's eyes, part of its skeleton, and chunks of its brain. Ultimately, this substantial damage forced Cthulhu to retreat to the dark side of the moon, where it dwells to this day, gathering strength for another attempt at total conquest. As for the Dryads, sadly all but a single member perished, and the sole survivor has not been seen for many, many years. Much time has passed since the Great War of Cthulhu. However, rumors tell of a lunatic cult led by a fanatical zealot that is methodically seeking to revive Cthulhu to its former power and bring about the end of the world. As a part of these efforts, a renowned genius simply known as the Mechanic has been kidnapped and forced to rebuild the parts needed to make Cthulhu whole once again. Hushed whispers tell of the results of these experiments, horrible mechanical simulacrums of Cthulhu's organs. The Mechanic has nearly completed her work, and only needing to finish the mechanical brain to restore Cthulhu to its full destructive power. Passing travelers hear construction and screams emanating from the dungeon, an evil, demonic fortress of the dead in which the Mechanic is supposedly held prisoner as she conducts her work. Many across Terraria have fallen under the possession of the cult, including the benevolent old man who oversees the dungeon. A once thriving city full of life until a curse forced all of its inhabitants to go mad, living beyond the point where their bodies rotted away and they became mindless, undead servants of evil. Without some intervention, some force to stem this tide, some hero to save the day, Terraria's doom is nigh at hand. This brings us to our adventure. It begins with you, in humble beginnings and shown your path by the faithful and mysterious guide. As this world's champion, you will experience communications from the world to help protect your mission. The world has brought you to this specific location at this specific time. Will you stand up and fight for Terraria against the growing shadows of impending doom? Now, it's stated in the text that the Dryads were able to cripple Cthulhu's body by removing its eyes, brain, and parts of its skeleton. Assuming you haven't made the connection, each of these parts identically corresponds to bosses we've seen throughout the game. Both the eye and brain of Cthulhu are a given, hence their name, but Skeletron is a bit more out there considering its relation to the dungeon and not named after Cthulhu. However, if you remember, the Mechanic was in the dungeon, forced to use the organs to create mechanized versions of them to eventually bring back Cthulhu to its full power. This correlates to Skeletron and Skeletron Prime being the same, confirming the fact that Skeletron is indeed Cthulhu's bones. Hopefully that makes sense. Side tidbit, I forgot to mention this prior to my recording, however, according to the official game lore, the Destroyer is a simulacrum of Cthulhu's spine, despite the Destroyer not taking heavy influence from it. The Eater Worlds, being an intro boss like the others, has no connection to Cthulhu and is not mentioned to be a formal body part, unlike the other pre-mech forms. It's weird. Back to the video. Now, other bosses in the game also have their own little tidbit of lore, giving them more context to their significance in the world and why they are aggressive to the player. We will start with King Slime. King Slime drops ninja armor, which is the armor of the ninja that is inside the boss when you fight him. According to Redigit, the trapped ninja is the guide's brother and was consumed by King Slime as a result of losing a fight against him. Next is the Queen Bee. The bestiary entry for Queen Bee states, this highly aggressive monstrosity responds violently when her larva is disturbed. The honey-laden hives are her home turf. This doesn't have much significance to anything besides the fact that she is the queen of all bees in the world and that she will fight you if you disturb her hive. Next we have Deerclops, the chilly one-eyed monstrosity from a foreign land, which is part of the Don't Starve Together crossover between Relogic and Clay Entertainment. The only significance being that the Eye of Cthulhu and the twins appear in Don't Starve Together, connecting the two games. Up next we move to hard mode bosses, starting with our favorite girl, the Queen Slime. Not much is mentioned about her from a lore standpoint, however the bestiary entry for the Queen Slime states, hollow slimes consolidate into a haughty, crushing force adorned in dazzling crystals. She is rumored to grow wings, meaning a bunch of hollowed slimes squished together into one big one, apparently being able to fly as well.
They fly now? They fly now!
Next we have Plantera. Not much is mentioned about her as well, however the bestiary entry for Plantera states, a dormant yet powerful floral guardian awoken by the fallout of Cthulhu's destroyed machinations. Its reach spans the entire jungle. Next we have Golem. Similar to Plantera, not much is stated anywhere regarding its significance besides the bestiary, which states, a remarkable display of ingenuity constructed by the Lizard clan. Powered by solar energy cells, it is ready to guard the temple. Defeating this temple guardian is necessary for progressing you throughout the game. Same applies to Plantera. One of the few bosses that isn't needed for progression, but in my opinion is still fun to fight, is Duke Fishron. The only thing mentioned about him comes from the bestiary, an aquatic pigron mutation from the depths of the ocean who surfaces in search of a rare savory type of worm. The last boss with some significance in lore will be the Empress of Light. The bestiary states this, beneath the hollow's cleansing blanket lies a vengeful vague goddess bent on scrubbing the land of any and all impurity, suggesting that the Empress sees the player as one of impurity by killing the world's guardian and the creatures of the hollow gives her a vengeance to cleanse this world's quote-unquote imperfections, aka you. Those were all the main pre-hard mode and hard mode bosses lore in Terraria. If you'd like me to go any further in depth with lore surrounding items, event bosses, biomes, weapons, or other crossover events, let me know in the comments if that's something you want to see, and I'll be sure to make a part 2. So far, this is all we know from the creators regarding the lore and backstory of Terraria. However, there has been on occasion where lore in the game has been retconned due to these parchments. A statement made by Red on the official Terraria Discord server said that the lunatic cultists were actively attempting to prevent Cthulhu's return to the world. Of course, now it's stated otherwise. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's seriously been a pleasure to make content for y'all, and I couldn't be happier for the support y'all have given me. Regardless if you think I deserve more subs or need more views on my videos, I'm just happy to make content for y'all who are here now. But again, the best and easiest way to support me in this endeavor is by hitting the subscribe button. It only takes a second and will help me go even further beyond than ever before. Thanks y'all, and I'll see you again real soon.